All right, it's 8 minutes before 8 o'clock here on Morning Live. Thank you so much for staying with the team. Now, ethical practices in organizations was in the spotlight this week as the Ethics Institute hosted its 8th annual conference here in Johannesburg. With the likes of Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, guests looked into different issues of corruption and how leaders and individuals can actually change their ethical conduct. But to talk to us more about what came out of that particular conference, we're now joined by the spokesperson of the Ethics Institute, Grace Garland. Grace, good morning to you. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously it's only fair that we take a look at the interview that we've just had on the Auditor General's report. Of course, it talks to issues of ethics.
Absolutely. And it doesn't make for very heartening listening, does it? In fact, it's quite saddening, especially to hear that it's gotten worse.
It has.
And I think that there are a lot of issues playing out in those municipalities that are microcosms of what is happening in the organization, in society in general. And those instances where people are giving contracts to friends.
And
the heart of that is an ethical issue.
It is
a conflict of interest at play.
What does it say about ethics and moral standings as the country?
In society, I mean, that's an enormous question. And obviously, the obvious answer is that it's not great, right? I think if you had to say anything other than that, you're either being naive or you're not paying much attention. There are some incredibly concerning matters in the country at the moment. And to be frank, we've all been quite bashed with bad news, constantly bad news in recent years where, bad deeds have taken place and we haven't seen the accountability that we would like to see. So
that's true.
I think we're all quite tired, quite fatigued.
Hearing the same story over and over again.
Exactly.
But I think that is where you come in as the Ethics Institute. How do you go about, assisting? Because I know that particular conference that took place earlier was about looking at these issues as well.
Yeah, it was. So the focus of the conference and of the Ethics Institute is organizational ethics, right? And that's not arbitrary. We focus on organizations for very good reasons. Adults spend a very large portion of their lives at work, right?
True.
Depending on, they can work in the public sector, private sector, it doesn't really matter. We spend a lot of our lives working. And organizations are immensely impactful. How an organization directs itself affects the society as a whole. So if you can, or our philosophy is that if you can provide people within organizations with the skills and the capabilities and the moral decision making to bring about positive actions inside their organizations and the way that they behave, that should have a positive overflow into society.
Because I wanted to say, before we talk of an organization, we talk of individuals working for that particular organization.
Yeah, okay.
So the issue of human resources comes into play.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, okay, let's talk about organizations. It's groups of people, but what are groups of people made of? Individual people. True. And every single one of us, inside of us, we are being shaped by, psychology that's going to impact on our decision making and our moral decision making especially. And inside each one of us there are different impulses. And the one is very much comes from an evolutionary shaping that we must be self-interested, right? You look out for ourselves. You want to survive in this game, you're going to look out for yourself. So in that space, if somebody comes across your way or prevents you from achieving your end, you will do whatever it takes to achieve that end, irrespective of if it harms that other person or not, right? So we've got this fairly selfish side to us, but that's not all we are. We are very social creatures, humans. We want to belong. True. And we can't function or belong in a group if we are only ever pursuing our own ends. We'll get kicked out, right? True. So there's a very deep impulse in us to be seen to be good and to be seen to be worthy. And we will have to sometimes put our own interests aside in order to fit in with a group. So we've got both of those impulses pulling us at all times. And essentially, if you can get it right in an organization, that you make the processes and the systems that make it easier for people to do that good thing rather than that self-interested thing. It's very basic. It's a very basic kind of human psychology is at play in individuals and in a greater degree in groups, because then you've got big social pressures at play as well. But there are ways to make it easier for people to do the right thing in a group. There are.
Yeah, let's just go back to the conference itself. As I said on my introduction, that the theme this year really focused on changing ethical conduct in organizations. You were telling me off air that you don't really pass recommendations, but this is more of a networking session for individuals. Talk to us about important issues and factors that came out of that conference.
Yeah, wonderful. So exactly, it's not the kind of conference where we come together and we make resolutions and then we're going to come back on them. We want to create a space where people can come to be inspired. So I suppose it's important for you to know that who's there, who's at the conference, and it's largely professional people who either work in the ethics office of their organization, so they are ethics managers, or they work closely related to that and have jobs that have huge ethical components, say in the risk, legal, compliance. These kind of people often, it doesn't matter which organization they work in. It could be a small one, could be a big one, could be local, could be international, could be public, could be private sector. Sometimes when they're working in an organization where it's an environment where it's not easy to raise ethical concerns, it can be quite a lonely gig. It can be quite a tough gig being that person who's got to raise those concerns. And so the conference is a space for like-minded people to come together and to network and to benefit from the gravitas that the speakers bring to the day. We have
the sharing of ideas as well.
Sharing ideas and kind of giving a little bit of a morale booster, which is what we need. As I said, we've been quite bashed by quite bad news for a long time. So it's a time for people to come together with like-minded colleagues and learn and to be given resources so that they go back to their organizations. This is the whole point. We don't just want to have a nice day where people have nice conversations. We want them to go back into their organizations feeling energized, feeling that they've got the resources that they need, they've got new ideas to drive that change.
Yeah, you've just predicted my next question, because I wanted to talk to you about how do we then move or go forward in terms of integrating the conversations and the sharing of ideas back into society and back into organizations.
Oh, yeah, there's the rub, right? We're quite good in this country at talking about things.
The implementation is always a challenge.
Precisely. So we do try to give the people, just to speak to the conference briefly, we do try to give them the resources that they need. We capacitate them with thought leadership material that they can take back to their organizations and implement change. But on a societal level, it's a matter of seeing how, whether the things that have been mentioned by the new leadership, all the very, very great noises that are being made at high levels can now be actualized in reality, right? And just earlier, if I can just refer to the earlier conversation that you had regarding the AG's report, that's a classic example. Kimi Makwetu was the speaker at our conference a couple of years ago, and he was saying exactly what they were mentioning earlier, that the AG every year delivers this dismal report and gives recommendations, and then what do? We all set our calendars for next year and the same thing's going to happen. But fortunately it looks like a cog is turning because that legislation is changing. So sometimes it does feel like it's all words, but words do drive action over time. And the important thing to say is that we are all members of the society, so there is a responsibility in each one of us to not give in to that bad impulse, right? And to rather do the thing that's better for others.
All right. In less than 20 seconds, what needs to be done going forward? In terms of keeping our morals and ethics, because of course they're governed by one's behavior.
Exactly. So think the golden rule, right, that we come back to in ethics and in morals is, and it sounds super cheesy, but it's important. Do to other people how you would like to be treated yourself.
Amen. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Grace.
It's very easy,
Let's leave
really.
it at that. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks to Grace Garland. She was talking to us about the state of ethics, of course, here in South Africa. And, of course, that brings us to your news at 8. And Leanne is standing by.